Respected Mahasangha, I'm very happy to be with you today. The topic that Venerable Ayya Santini had given me was to speak on dual ordination. Dual ordination becomes quite an issue for the present establishment of the Bhikkhuni Sangha, particularly in Theravada tradition. Bhikkhuni ordination in Southeast Asia is newly revived. Certain points were left unclear, but with respect to historical timeline, one should not be confused. So allow me, I'm presenting to you according to historical timeline. I think this is the easiest way to understand and to appreciate dual ordination. First of all, we know that when the Buddha was enlightened 5 years, that was when he had the Bhikkhu Sangha started for 5 years. Then Mahapajapati, Queen Mahapajapati, who was also the Buddha's aunt and stepmother, approached him for ordination. At that time, the ordination that was given to Venerable the Queen Mahapajapati was ordination from the Buddha through Venerable Ananda, and what she got was a Garudama. So Garudama was remembered by Venerable Ananda directly from the Buddha. This is according to the Theravada text. And then given to Mahapajapati. And Venerable Mahapajapati took it with all her heart. She was very happy to take Garudama. So she's the first Bhikkhuni who received ordination through taking 8 Garudama. Then the second point that we come to study is the Bhikkhunis. Also, one point that I need to add here is that this ordination was given to women because they can be enlightened. They can be enlightened. Satchika tunti. They can see it with their own eyes. I think this is a very important point that we as women should take note and should be delightful that with this condition the Buddha allowed women to step forward. And then the next point, that the women who followed Mahapajapati, who followed the Queen Mahapajapati to be ordained, they were Sakyanis. They were called Sakyani in the Buddhist text. These were from the Sakyan family, and they were mostly palace women. Large number, but in commentaries often say 500. But we imagine it is large number of these women. They were given ordination by the bhikkhus. This is the allowance that the Buddha actually gave to the bhikkhus. He said, "O bhikkhus, I allow you to give ordination to women as bhikkhunis." So underline this. This is the Buddha's allowance for the bhikkhus to give ordination to bhikkhunis. This allowance was not lifted up, therefore it is still intact. Yes, this is important point to remember. The next point I would like to bring to your attention, historical timeline. Then after some time, there's this one particular candidate, she also asked for ordination, but somehow she was uncomfortable and she refused to answer the Andrayikadhamma. Andrayikadhamma, as we have now, 13 for the bhikkhus and 24 for the bhikkhunis. So what happened then? The ordination cannot be continued, So the bhikkhus who were giving her ordination came back to the Buddha and asked the Buddha, "This is the problem, how we should proceed. How can we proceed?" The Buddha asked for the reason why this candidate refused to answer Andrayikadhamma or purified herself, clarified herself of these 24 dangerous points that might be dangerous for leading monastic life. So then he came to know that this woman was shy to answer such questions in front of all these bhikkhus, because some of the questions were very, very private, asking about her private parts like that, So the Buddha understood, and with his compassion, with his loving kindness, he said, "Oh, in that case, these are very personal questions. Let the bhikkhunis do it. Let the bhikkhunis come in and help the procession of the ordination by allowing the bhikkhunis to ask these Andrayikadhamma from the candidates." So this is how the bhikkhunis were introduced into the procession, into the procedure of ordination, which was formerly done completely by the Bhikkhu Sangha. The next point, we understand at this point that the Bhikkhunis were introduced in order for the Bhikkhunis to purify the candidates of Antarayika Dhamma. Okay, then the next one, as we see according to the timeline that we study, then some candidates were very clumsy. When they come in front of the Bhikkhu Sangha, they were very clumsy. So the Bhikkhu Sangha who were giving them ordination complained that these candidates were not trained well. So then the candidates were sent back to be trained. She still appeared very clumsy. So the Bhikkhus asked, who trained her? Which Bhikkhunis who trained her like that, you know? So when they said, oh, Bhikkhuni so-and-so was her teacher training her, then the Bhikkhu Sangha came up with yet another condition, that the Bhikkhuni who should be training her should be well versed in the Dharma Vinaya. She should be Pawatini. So this is how we get a picture of Pawatini is introduced into the procedure of ordination. That is, the candidate must be trained by Pawatini, and this Pawatini must be appointed by the Bhikkhu Sangha. And then we study the qualities of the Pawatini. Number one, she must be 12 vasas, that is, she must be senior. So we imagine that this actually must have happened at the time when the Bhikkhunis at least have 12 vasas as their highest. Well versed, Pawatini must be well versed in Dharma Vinaya. Not only that, she must practice Dharma Vinaya herself and well accepted by the Bhikkhuni Sangha and also by the Bhikkhu Sangha. Important quality of the Pawatini, she must be appointed by the Bhikkhu Sangha. So far, I have not seen that the women, that the Bhikkhunis were allowed to perform as Ubudjaya. You know, in the present day, sometimes we hear the Bhikkhunis, the senior Bhikkhunis are being called Ubudjaya, meaning one who give Ubudjaya, one who give Upasambada. I have not come across this word Ubudjaya, but we have Pawatini. So, you know, Ubudjaya for the male preceptor, for the Bhikkhu preceptor is called Ubudjaya, and then the teacher on the Bhikkhuni side is called Pawatini. You see that they have different roles. So, as my understanding, Upasambada therefore is given by the Bhikkhu Sangha. But then someone argued that, but there is Kamavaja, you know, the verses that we recite for asking for Upasambada by the Bhikkhuni. It seems as though the Bhikkhunis were also giving Upasambada. To my understanding, if you read timeline very carefully, that, you know, remember that case, you know, that candidate was very clumsy, so she had to be sent back to the Bhikkhuni Sangha, and the Bhikkhuni Sangha trained her and actually gave a rehearsal as though the Bhikkhunis are actually giving the Upasambada themselves, you know, and this rehearsal was mistaken as the real Upasambada. So therefore, at this point, I understand that Upasambada must be done by the Bhikkhu Sangha, finalized by the Bhikkhu Sangha, or whatever ordination that you might have gone through, unless and until it is Upasambada, the final stage, is done by the Bhikkhu Sangha, then only it is accepted as Upasambada, as an ordained Bhikkhuni. Then we have Garudama. In this Garudama number 6, which I think often leads to misunderstanding. In this Garudama number 6, the candidates, you know, who had been trained as Sikhamana, I still have to talk about Sikhamana later on. Sikhamana who had been trained under the Bhikkhuni for complete 2 vasas. She must seek both Sanghas, seek both Sanghas for Upasambada. This has been misunderstood as seeking ordination from both Sanghas. To my understanding, seek both Sanghas. For the Bhikkhunis to train candidates, to purify the candidates of Andarayika Dhamma. And then for the Bhikkhu Sangha to give Upasambada. This is my understanding. So therefore we go back into the history and the real, in the real incident that took place in 1998. That is a year when we considered, at least in Southeast Asian countries, we consider that is the beginning of Theravada Bhikkhuni ordination in the contemporary time. You remember that there were large group of people who came for ordination, hundreds, something like 148 who came for the ordination in Bodh Gaya. The ordination was offered by Phu Guangshan. In Bodh Gaya, there were hundreds of candidates, but only 20 candidates who received ordination from Bodh Gaya, and then they were taken. This is only Sri Lankan candidates who were already fully ordained in Bodh Gaya. They were taken to Sarnath and yet gave another ordination, purely Theravada, by the 20 senior Sri Lankan Bhikkhu Sangha who were there at that time, So why they had to move from Bodh Gaya to Sarnath? Because in Sarnath they actually have their own Theravada consecrated Sima according to Theravada style. So the 20 candidates who were already received ordination from both Bhikkhunis and Bhikkhu Sangha arranged by Phu Guangshan again were taken to Sarnath and received another ordination. I consider this to be Talikama, that is confirmation. And with this confirmation of Upasambada in 1998, that is how we started the lineage of the Bhikkhuni Sangha at the present time. So again, I come back to dual ordination. It is to seek both Sanghas, but ordination is given by the Bhikkhu Sangha. Upasambada is given by the Bhikkhu Sangha, and we need the Bhikkhunis so that the Bhikkhunis can help with the purification of Andarayika Dhamma. This is my understanding, and so far we have been following this very closely. In the practice, the Bhikkhunis also give rehearsal at the beginning. It seems as though they were giving Upasambada, but to my understanding, that was rehearsal, because Upasambada is a Sangha Kamma. If it is done properly by one Sangha, it should be taken that it is completed. But it is meant to be completed in the Bhikkhu Sangha as allowed by the Buddha. So therefore, the one that is previously done by the Bhikkhuni Sangha is a rehearsal. This is my understanding. If you do have a different way of looking at the Sangha Kamma, at the Dharma Vinaya, we can always discuss and we can always share, so that the establishment of the Bhikkhuni Sangha in the present day, which is still very new, we are very young sapling yet, so that we can grow properly. Thank you so much.